Good evening, ISODA members. And Dhruv sir, good evening. Welcome to our Friday Connect.
Hi, good
So
evening.
hope we can, yeah, hi sir. So we can start the session, right? So now,
Yeah, we can if you have the participants, definitely.
yes. Actually, it's 30 plus now.
Okay, perfect.
So yeah,
Okay,
thank you, sir. Please start the
okay.
session.
So, good evening and hi to the Icons team. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for taking out time on a Friday evening when I'm sure you must be starting to wind up work for the weekend and listen to yet another boring session on tax. But to make things a little interesting, I've added something which is very close to my heart, and it's AI and productivity. I'm very excited to actually get to that part, but to reach to the good things, we need to get through the relatively boring ones and the drab ones first. So obviously, the first would be tax updates, the thing I'm being paid for, and the thing I excel at in sort of understanding. So, hope everyone's well. We'll just start. And the reason and the basic intent for holding this webinar was essentially to update you on the recent developments and sort of just have an interface with all the members on how, if they're facing any challenges, if they're facing any queries, and to be able to discuss it on a common forum with all the other members. So, with that in mind, our agenda obviously today will be to just understand a little bit about the changes in income tax, changes in direct tax. Only practical changes, no major changes have come. With some of the queries that I've received from members, just to help resolve the to set the landscape sort of clear, we're just going to go through that. A little bit of practical changes in GST law, what all has come, what all you need to be careful about. Although the GST law does give you 1,000 things to be careful about, it always ends up beating itself and makes it 1005 in the next iteration. So you will keep on observing that GST is something which will keep on surprising you, just like a teenage son or a daughter. AI and what it holds, I'll get to this session and then probably let it unravel itself as when we discuss. And obviously, the second favorite part of my presentation is questions and discussions and interaction with all the members. Now, what all changes have happened in income tax? Although we have sent update mails, but one important thing and one thing which I've realized there is a little bit of confusion, lack of clarity amongst members is whether what is the situation of withholding tax when I'm paying to a foreign vendor, or whether I need to get this document, that document, X document, Y document, Z document. So let me just I've covered this on I've covered this on previous discussions also, but I think just helping refresh the concepts makes the sort of makes it permanent in the mind, so that when you're in a discussion with a customer, you can obviously go back and refer to this understanding. What has happened in the past 1.5 years, which is the landmark change, is, let me just start the so the landmark change that has happened is that there has been a recent Supreme Court ruling which stipulates that yes, there is no TDS on purchase of software from outside India. That part, I think we're all clear. Now, there are two, three things we need to be sure about. One is, yes, there is no TDS on purchase of software, purchase of electronic licenses, which are meant for resale from outside India. The first thing is that this ruling 100% applies to vendors who are situated outside India. So the ruling is a little unclear on the domestic part, and we've covered this before also, and I've written it on various queries, update mails, etc. But you need to be very sure about this, that on when you're talking about outside India, yes, the ruling 100% applies. But when you're talking within India, your multi-level TDS reduction circular is of prime importance and continues to be of prime importance. So the way to think about this is, the framework to think about this is, if you are buying from outside India, by outside India I mean from a company, from an individual, if you're remitting, if the vendor is outside India, then yes, please, it is on the basis of the Supreme Court ruling, no TDS is deductible. One. The second part being, obviously, when you're buying it from within India, if you're buying it from a domestic company, a private limited, LLP, blah, 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 in all these cases, the the multi-level TDS reduction circular will still be applicable, and all the confusion, caveats, etc., which were there before still apply. So please do not read this ruling into the domestic scenario, only read it to the international scenario. That being said, whether I go and I find a vendor who is willing to sell to me And should I just immediately not deduct TDS just on the basis that he is outside India? No. There are three set of documents. There are three essential set of documents which need to be taken from the vendor before you enter into this transaction. The first is something known as a TRC, which is short for a tax residency certificate. What is that certificate? It is a certificate which confirms that yes, the person who you're buying from is a resident of the country in which he's based, a tax resident. So, for example, there are many shell companies which are based out of Dubai, Singapore, etc. So these countries, although these companies are based out of Dubai and Singapore, the tax authorities of Dubai and Singapore don't want to give them the benefits of being a tax resident of that country. So only companies having substantial operation within a particular country will be given this TRC. This is given by the government of that particular country. So if you are dealing with a vendor from Spain, the TRC will be given from the Spanish authorities. Same with the US, it will be given by the IRS. Canada, it will be given by Canadian Taxation Office. UK, it will be given by US. So this will be a government document, and this is renewed every year. So every year you're going to have to make sure that if you're having a continuous relationship with this vendor, that you get the renewed certificate every year. So so it's sorry. So it's important in the TRC to make sure that it is applicable for the current year. It is issued by the government authority, and you obtain it and keep it in your records. The second part of the document, which usually is something we refer to as a no P certificate. Now, when it comes to no P, there is no requirement for you to understand what is P, what is not. This is a very simple letter, A4 sheet on the letterhead of the vendor, that we do not have any permanent establishment in India. That's it. You're not supposed to read too much into it. A draft format has been shared by me. I'll be happy to share it again if you require. Just get this certificate or this letter signed on a plain A4 sheet by your vendor, and that's it. There is no requirement for it to be attested, notarized, or affirmed by any foreign government, etc. Nothing. This is a simple, plain A4 sheet letter. 10F, and obviously this flows down to the next part of my discussion, is what is 10F? Now, although TRC contains some information like the name of the company, the tax ID of the company in the foreign jurisdiction, if it's a UK company, etc., the Indian government says that I need certain additional information over and above the TRC. So the government has said that I also need this certificate called 10F. So the 10F is also a certificate which has to be sort of provided by the foreign vendor. It could earlier, maybe 2 3 years back, it could have been just provided on a simple A4 sheet signed by any authorized signatory of the vendor. But now the situation has changed. The government has made it an electronic process to furnish this. What was happening before 1st October was that only these foreign vendors who had a PAN in India, who had a PAN number, were required to give this 10F from the income tax website. But from 1st October, and this is the key change why I've highlighted this part, is that from 1st October 2023, the foreign vendors, even if they do not have the PAN, have to furnish the 10F through the income tax website. So yet again, I'm reiterating, to summarize and to make it simple and straightforward, these three documents are sacrosanct. Out of these, the TRC has to be obtained from the foreign uh, government, from the government or the tax office. The no PE certificate is a simple A4 declaration. The 10F has to be irrespective of whether the vendor has a PAN, he does not have a PAN, XYZ, he's unwell, XYZ, whatever is the thing, he has to furnish the form 10F from the income tax website. There is a functionality which has been added which allows people without PAN also to apply for this certificate. It is an instantaneous process, takes maybe 10 15 minutes. It's slightly laborious, has a little bit of red tape, but the process does not require any approval. You just fill up the information on behalf of the vendor, or the vendor can do it himself, and the 10F will come. In most cases, why I've added this fourth point is because most of the times if the vendor has not dealt with the customer in India, obviously he will be relying on you and requiring your assistance to apply for this 10F, because he will not be apprised with the Indian tax law. So at that point, obviously in some days, once the system is matured, I'll put in a YouTube video and share with the ISODA members on how to apply for the 10F, so you can assist your vendor in applying for this, because at the end of the day it helps your commercial relationship with the vendor, that you don't have to deduct the withholding tax, and it makes your negotiation with the vendor relatively straightforward and easy. So yet again reiterating, TRC from foreign government, no PE on plain A4 sheet, 10F from the income tax website. Three things. Once you have it, you have your go ahead in not deducting any withholding tax while paying to the foreign vendor. I am taking a little 2 minute diversion here to sort of ask any questions. I'd be happy to answer, because I don't want to, I want to make sure this understanding is slightly clear amongst members before I move ahead.
Hi, Dhruv. This is
Hi.
Sanjay from Login Infotech Bangalore.
Yeah. Hi.
Yeah, so regarding 10F, these foreign companies refrain from doing it because they themselves do not understand this form, and they say we have to get a clearance from their legal, and then they also cry about, the legal advice they have to pay there in dollars. So they say, sorry, we cannot do it.
Hmm.
Then what do we do? What is the next step?
Sir, it's as essential as me telling you that if you have fever, you need to take a dose of crocin. There's no way out of it. There's no
Okay.
way out of it. I mean, see, what you can is to allay their fears that the 10F is not a declaration to the Indian government of any sort. It is just a merely submission of information. So maybe the way to allay their fear is to tell them that 10F is merely an information submission through a government portal. So
Okay.
you're not changing your tax position, you're not legally confirming or not confirming anything. You are merely telling the Indian government that, hi, I am this vendor, my tax ID number is this, and I already have a TRC in my home country. It's a method of communicating this to the Indian government. It's basically a system to rationalize the reporting. That's all it is. Maybe if you can explain it in that sense, I think their fears will be allayed to a large extent.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
And obviously the carrot and stick approach would be, okay, you don't give me the 10F, I'll deduct your withholding tax. I'm sure that will make them
No,
immediately furnish.
some of them are very stubborn.
I
They
understand.
said, sorry, we will not supply. That's the way they treat us. Okay, if they are able to give us alternatively the VAT certificate where they have registered, or the GST certificate, doesn't
So
that suffice?
won't work. No, won't work. So thank you for pointing this out. In fact, I've had numerous cases where the registration certificate, the VAT certificate has been shared, stating that this is the TRC. Please use this. See, unfortunately, that's not the case. The TRC, I can go and set up a company in Dubai, right? And it can have zero turnover. I can set it up in any country for that matter. It'll have zero turnover, and then I can just start trading that and use the treaty benefit of that country. So so just being a citizen, so there's a difference between being a citizen and a resident. So just being a citizen, a corporate citizen of that country, uh, just being a corporate citizen of that country does not mean that you are eligible for the tax benefit. The TRC ensures that yes, the government has said that this company can enjoy the tax treaty benefit. So no other certificate like the VAT, the registration, the license, none of these can take the place of TRC. Fortunately,
Mhm.
unfortunately, it's very strict that the TRC has to convey that, hi, I am the Spanish government and I am confirming that this company is a tax resident of Spain, Singapore, Dubai, whatever.
Okay, so sometimes these guys have, yearly,
I,
requisition
yeah.
they need to make to their country, and that delays process. They say we have
So,
applied for.
practically, what you need to do, and Ajay sir's question on the chat window pertains to that only, is that sometimes companies will come to you and say that, look, I've applied to the IRS. It'll take me 5, 6 months to get it. Now, at
Yes.
that point, it becomes a relationship call. So, if they have been able to furnish a TRC in the previous year, you can have an understanding with them that, look, I will not be deducting any withholding tax, and I understand that you will provide me the TRC at the end of the year or whenever you do get it. So, this kind of a lag, although strictly if you read the law, the TRC should be present as on the date of you making the remittance, but this kind of a leeway is still practically permissible, that you can just tell them that, okay, 5, 6 months down the line, once you do get it, please do share. And if they're a customer who regularly deals with India and has had applied for the TRC in the previous year, there's a 99.9% probability that they'll get the TRC for the current year and furnish it to you. So
Okay.
it's a relationship call. If you're sure that it's a good relationship, you've continued, you've seen it furnishing the documents, you've seen them being prompt, you can wait until that time, not deduct any withholding tax while paying them, with the assumption that they'll obviously give it.
Okay, so one more thing which I face a problem is that there is a parent company and then they have the subsidiary company. Okay, so for example, if Reliance Industries and owns Vimal as a brand, then when they bill out, it says Vimal.net. Okay, and they give us a bill. And when we ask them documentation, you have to give us on Vimal.net, they say no, we are the subsidiary of Reliance Industries. So they're giving us Reliance Industries document. How do we manage such situations?
Sir, it is see, if a bill is invoice is being raised by a subsidiary company, if you're dealing with the son, then the father's document obviously don't suffice, right? You are dealing with the son has invoiced it to you, right?
Yes.
So the documents have to belong to the son. So the counter question would be that merely because the son has raised invoice, can I just pay to the bank account of the father? No, right? So you will pay to the bank account of the son.
No, no. I agree that point of view. Only thing is a good way to debate with the debate, but then these people just refrain from understanding. And it's all mail trails which we keep on exchanging just to get a document from them.
So okay, so let me see. I'll give you another perspective, right? I think which will the question about so whether you do let's say you haven't deducted the TDS, right? There is
Yeah.
a sense of ignorance, etc. The
Okay.
probability for it obviously being detected is
Hmm.
significantly lesser nowadays, right? See, there
Yeah.
I understand the business challenges. Now I am speaking as a perspective from your perspective, not from a purely tax guy who's just read the books and is blabbering on the law.
Okay.
So in spirit, obviously you should definitely try and ensure that the documentation is in place. Maybe if 60 to 70% of the documentation is in place, right? Even
Hmm.
during scrutiny, if you're able to substantiate that 60 to 70% of my remittances have this supporting document, right?
Okay.
The officer would also see that the law is being followed in a sense, and there has been a practical challenge in the rest of them, although obviously he has the power in law to obviously disallow that expense. But
Okay.
so, I mean, I hope you're trying to understand the gist of what I'm saying is that, as much as possible, please try and comply with this. Obviously, there will be challenges where we will not receive this form, and the vendor will say that please don't deduct any withholding tax, and they'll say gross it up. Why should you take the hit of 10-20%, right?
Right.
Obviously, that I understand, but the intent should be to just follow it to the the spirit of it as much as possible.
I
Where there
understand
is a
that.
practical challenge, I mean, there's really nothing you and I can do there.
I understand. I understand. So one more thing is there that this DTTA,
Yeah, yeah,
now various countries, when we look to identify
right,
India to Singapore,
right,
India to US and all this, there is a variance of 10% and 20%.
right.
Now we do not have any link which shows that yes, it is standard 10% for these countries and 20% for these countries. Is there a link?
Sir, I'll share that. That's not, there's a
Okay.
reference guide to the DTAA. That's not the issue. But my point is that you're not even supposed to go into this once you receive all these three documents. Then the tax rate is effectively zero. Then, you don't have to, unless you're paying them for some services,
Yeah.
then there is really no need to even go into the DTAA rate.
I
Provided,
understand, but
yeah,
what happens is to convince them to give us these documentation. We have to send them
I
a link
understand.
that
I
Income Tax
understand. I
Department
understand.
of
Okay,
India is
so
asking. Yeah,
yeah. So I think you're looking at a smoking gun, right? To be able to
yeah, yeah, yeah,
understand. So I'll share the a PDF which has the rates, India versus all countries. I'd shared, I think, maybe 4 5 years back. I'll reshare it.
yeah, 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 yeah.
No, we
Fine.
can we move ahead because there are
Yes,
lots of
sure, sure. I'm sorry.
yeah because
I was just about to
yeah, yeah, yeah. Requesting you to complete your presentation first.
Okay, fine. Because okay, fine, no problem.
now moving on to the next part is the Form 13. So just by a little bit of poll, or maybe in the chat window, if how many of you have applied Form 13? I'm obviously continuing. You can give a yes or a no in the chat window. Form 13 is basically something 3 years back, there was a roadmap in the budget where they had announced that we're revamping the system for applying for a lower withholding certificate. And earlier they had said that we'll allow this functionality for 100 TAN numbers, so basically for 100 customers. And then they had mentioned that there will also be a functionality to allow for a blanket lower withholding rate, that even if you don't have the TAN of the customer, you can in fact file this. And if a new customer comes during the year, you can essentially give him the certificate. But this functionality was not enabled, and we were following it for 2-3 years, but it hadn't been enabled. Now they've enabled it from 1st October, and we've practically checked it 2 days back. There is this functionality. Sorry, this functionality has been enabled on the income tax portal. What this means for you is that for people who have multiple customers who they are unable to, at the start of the year, when you go and apply for a lower withholding certificate, why would you apply? Just for people who are not apprised, is that obviously you are subject, when you go and sell softwares, when you go and sell licenses, you are subject to a very high withholding, which eats into your margin. Some people deduct TDS at 10%. You're unable to argue with them. You're unable to make them understand. This their prerogative to deduct. So a lot of companies go to the department and say, look, our profit margin is so low, why don't you allow us, our customers, to deduct tax at a lower rate than possible? So this Form 13 is a functionality which allows you as the person receiving the payment to go to the department and allow and tell them to give you permission that your customers can deduct tax at low rate. Now this usually happens at the start of the year, and you furnish the list of TAN numbers to the department. Now what has changed is that what the challenge was, that if you had furnished a list of TANs and let's say some new customer comes in, then you again have to run back and apply, reapply, revise the form, increase the list, that okay, I have some new customers, the old customers are not coming, etc. Now what has emerged now is something known as a TAN less certificate. By TAN less, I mean that there is no requirement to furnish the TAN number of all your customers. The department will give you a blanket lower withholding, which means that whatever customer comes subject to a monetary limit. So you can tell them, look, my turnover will be 20 crores in the entire year. So up till 20 crores, whichever customer is going to come in can deduct tax at that lower rate. And that customer can be any XYZ customer. It can be a new customer, old customer, etc. So practically you don't have to run back to the department again and again and say, look, my customer list is increasing, or my, I had applied with these many customers. Now there are new customers. The only caveat here is that the department has said that this is only applicable in case of customers exceeding 100. Practically, we're still waiting to find out how, they will determine whether the customers have actually exceeded 100 or not. But for now, we believe that you can apply for this method and use this blanket lower withholding as a method to reduce your refund amount, which you have to file at the end of the year with your income tax return. So this functionality has been enabled. Please do be in touch with your local consultants to understand this implication, how it will help you, how you can use it. Even if you are unable to apply for this, the number of customers don't exceed 100, I would still urge all members to use this method for even for customers who you have large dealings with, where you have visibility on how much you will be billing them. Why? Because the increase in refund amount is a sure short way of you getting picked up for income tax scrutiny. And income tax scrutiny is being held in a faceless mechanism, so it's very difficult to get it done. So, and one of the biggest indicators we've seen is that a very high refund in most cases does attract scrutiny. So it's always better to keep the refund on as less as possible and use Form 13. Even if this functionality is not, let's say, technically usable, even for the regular customers, I would urge you to use the Form 13, and it also saves your working capital. So essentially, two major things. One, and sorry, one second, let me just erase all of this. Moving on to the next slide is a practical change, which I had also sent an update about. It is change in TCS, LRS, etc. Now, there has been a lot of flip-flops. I'll just erase all of this. I'm so sorry. There have been a lot of flip-flops of policy on TCS, on LRS. Now, let's first understand. I had some queries pertaining to this, so I wanted to understand the base concepts first. There is, sorry. There is I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry about the slide. What is LRS? When you are going to a bank or when you are making any remittance from your personal name, let me reiterate, from your personal capacity. Let's say you're planning to pay for the child's education abroad. uh, I should not click. I'm sorry. I think let's say you're paying for your child's education abroad, you're paying for medical treatment, you're paying for a personal tour package. Let me reiterate, personal tour. We are not talking here about the tour which you're paying as a company. I'll get to that point also later. But right now, I'm just specifically talking about LRS. LRS is a scheme which allows every individual in the country to remit $250,000 outside India per financial year per person. When you swipe your credit card on a foreign website, let's say on a Netflix or on a Google Workspace or on any other foreign vendor, that limit is going from your LRS limit. So the government allows you to pay forex and use forex up to $250,000. Now, what is TCS? TCS is tax collected at source. The government wants to basically collect tax from you whenever you make these payments. One, for detection; two, for additional tax collection. Who doesn't like additional tax coming their way? And at the end of the year, you will be happily gifted back this tax in the form of a refund, or if tax is payable, just like TDS, you can get this deducted. So then, Dhruv, why is this so much of a botheration for me? Because, sirs and ma'ams, the amount, if you're remitting a high amount outside India, a 5% TCS being blocked for 1 year is obviously a humongous amount. You're already under the confines of the taxman, so additional confines doesn't really help you. So if you're doing these kind of payments, remitting these kind of payments, what is the law from 1st October? I have given a slide chart over here. And so, I mean, it's self-explanatory. What I would like to cover is the last part of it. So when we come to education, a medical treatment tour package, it's pretty self-explanatory that up till 7 lakh, no TCS. Beyond 7 lakhs, in some cases, even from zero, there'll be payment. Beyond 7 lakhs, 5% of the total amount. But when you were talking about any other remittance, what does this mean? Any other remittance means any payment in your personal capacity that you're doing. So it can be a gift. So let's say you just want to pay a gift to your brother or your sister who's living outside India. Even for that gift, beyond 7 lakhs, when you're doing, the TCS is 20%. You're planning to buy some shares outside India, 20% TCS. You're planning to buy some real estate outside India, 20% TCS. So, although there is a very small section of people who are doing investment in shares and real estate outside India, but obviously there are people who do gift money to their relatives outside India. Even this gift will attract a TCS of around 20%. This money will be blocked till the time. This money will be blocked till the time you're able to file your income tax return in the next year and avail the refund of that. A common question which I've seen from members come is that whether this tour package, when we're specifically, let me just highlight this. When we're specifically talking about tour package, whether this tour package will attract TCS when I'm paying from my company. Now, what we are seeing is a divergence and a confusion in the market. We are often seeing tour operators raise their invoices for hotels, for air tickets, and they levy the 5% TCS. So then the next question becomes that, look, even if I'm paying less than 7 lakh, why are you levying 5% TCS? And even though I'm paying as a company, this is not even LRS, I'm paying from my company, this is my business expense, I'm going to visit XYZ country. Why are you still levying it? It's because even the tour operator, when he's paying this money outside India using his bank account, the bank says and automatically collects the TCS. So obviously the tour operator can't pay the TCS from his own pocket. He's not the guy who's going outside India. So he gets the TCS reimbursed from you. Obviously, this is not a loss to you. The 5% TCS, he will give your PAN number to the bank and you will obviously get the credit of this TCS. But please don't be surprised if you see a lot of tour operators, even when they're raising invoices to in your company's name to levy this 5%, but do question them that this is only on LRS. This is not applicable on on corporate remittances or on corporate expenses. So please do ask your package operator why he's levying TCS. Even if he is levying, he'll ask you for a copy of the PAN, and then it becomes an unavoidable mistake. Now, we don't know how credit card companies are going to implement this. So, for example, a common question which was in fact posed was, let's say I have a credit card and I am paying 10 lakh rupees as fee for my child's education. So, my child has gone to Harvard and let's hope everyone's child does. And So I'm paying 10 lakh rupees fee. So TCS should be collected on the 3 lakh portion, right? What if I just buy two credit cards? One I take from HDFC, one I take from ICICI, and from each card I pay 5 lakh each, 5 lakh each. So then both don't know that the total threshold has increased, and both will not levy the TCS. So nobody has been able to, there has been no clarity on the practicality of how this will be levied in case of credit cards. Suffice to say, when you're going for bank remittances also, let's say you're going to the bank and you want to pay medical treatment tour package, again I'm talking about this in your individual capacity. You can just go to two banks and pay 5 lakhs from one, 5 lakhs from the other. They will not get to know because the threshold has not increased. Because what happens is, when you're going to make these remittances, they ask you to give a self declaration that please confirm that you have not exceeded the limits, etc., etc. Most of the times we just sign this declaration, and you don't have no to we don't even give it a second look. But that declaration technically absolves a bank from any liability in terms of determining your total threshold. But be advised that foreign remittances are a little costly now, need to be done carefully. Tax needs to be planned. If you are planning to make foreign remittances from your family, please check the person who has the highest tax liability. Just gift the money to that person and let that person makes the tax remittance, because then the tax will get adjusted in his or her liability at the end of the year. Just have that additional question in your mind before you are planning to make any remittance. That's the only thing I would want you to be aware about. Again, reiterating, this does not impact your corporate remittances, your payment for software, your payment for services that you take from abroad, etc. Nothing to do with that. Only impacts liberalized remittance scheme, individual remittances to outside India. So we've concluded now the part pertaining to the direct tax. Now heading to a little bit about the indirect tax GST, very basic things. E-invoicing is now applicable from 1st August for people having turnover in excess of 5 crores. Please be aware about this and do the e-invoicing. A common question is, let's say if you've forgotten to do this, or you've generated an e-invoice in your system from your accounting software, but you have not generated the e-invoice, please be advised that you don't need to worry about it. There is no time limit right now for people below 100 crores turnover to generate the invoice. Even for people above 100 crore turnover, e-invoice can still be generated after a little while. So there's no limit that the invoicing generation date has to be on the same date as the date you're generating the main invoice, but obviously it is practically relevant. Just a small thing in the law. So please be aware about invoicing. So your system should be robust. Over the next 1 year, we'll see invoicing come for all levels of turnover. This will go down to maybe 2 crores by 1st January. And then it'll, be applicable to all dealers maybe by 1st April 2024. Now, just by show of hand or a yes or a no, has anybody received some GST notices on or before 30th September stating show cause notice? Have any of the members received that?
Yes, I have received.
Okay. Anybody else? Just to. So what is happening now is that
We also received.
okay. So you will the not so happy news is that there is another deadline. So for financial year 17-18, the deadline to issue these notices was 30th September. So a lot of you must have received these notices before 30th September. A lot of will hit, and I've given the example. I'll just give the example of how they're coming at these notices, and just to apprise all the members of the taxation landscape on how it's changing. So just first the due dates I'll cover, then I'll get to the notices and how you should be more prepared in terms of accounting systems, etc. 17-18, the due date to issue all notices for all activities of 30th September. If you have not gotten any notice till 30th September, congratulations. The Gov department cannot touch you for any matter pertaining to financial year 17-18, provided you have not engaged in any sort of fraud, for which they have 1 year extra. For financial year 18-19, the notice is going to be issued on or before 31st December. And 3 months after issuance, they have to be concluded. So the proceedings have to be concluded. So please be on top of it. These notices are issued by the GST officers who are, unlike income tax officers, don't believe in adjournments, etc. Please be active on these notices. Ensure that your consultant or your responses are going on or before the due date and they are being responded to. I have also sent a mail. to all members that please go to your GST logins and check whether you've received these notices or not. Sometimes they go on some different email ID. You need to be very sure about that. So for 17-18, the due date for concluding proceedings is 31st December. For 18-19, it's 31st March 2024. So the next 6 months, you might see notices coming your way. My only advice is to be on top of it in terms of the responses. What we are seeing in these notices now, if you see these notices, they're all generated based on pure data. There is no human intervention. These are automatically generated notices. They have relied on your figures only and the data they have, and made some complex logic. Sometimes the logic falls flat also. Some of the demands are completely they're not really substantial, and etc. They're not really making any sense, but the data has been received from that. So the thing to tell your consultant or GST person is to make sure, double sure, that no mistakes in entering the data while filing GST returns should be made. The data entry process should be robust, because if all the data points are matching, then the probability of you getting a GST notice is next to negligible, provided your turnover is not so high that you're under the radar for some other reasons. But for people, what I personally believe is that for people worth turnovers of 30, 50, 60 crores, we have not seen notices coming because all of the data points were in place. We've seen notices coming where they have engaged with some dealers who registration is cancelled. That's one of the things that come, or two, that they have done some reconciliation entries. They might have entered something wrong during the year and corrected it at the end of the year. In those cases, we are seeing notices come, but all of them are AI generated. The offices have nothing to do with the generation of these notices. So you can have a look at the kind of language and the way it is being done. For example, in this notice, we've seen that they've taken the GST you have claimed and the GST uploaded by the suppliers and then calculated the difference. And they're demanding this 1,35,000 as the GST. So all electronically generated, just a game of data. If your data is fine, you remain below the radar. If your data is not fine, system will flag you. So these were primarily the changes in GST. Just data is again the only answer to the GST. Perfect. So now heading on to the second part, and obviously we're a little short of time. I'll try and quickly do it. So I would want this 2 to 3 minute interaction with the members. Please feel free to unmute. Although we are seeing a lot of advent of a lot of AI tools in the workplace, etc., how are you using ChatGPT, if at all you are? And if not, what's the reason you're holding back?
I'm using ChatGPT for just anything. To draft a letter, to make a content writing, everything.
Okay,
And it is so
thank you.
useful.
Yes, absolutely. A lot of people tend to think of the ChatGPT as a calculator for text. So we had this era where we had a calculator for numbers, and we stopped thinking about arithmetic as a whole. And now we've stopped thinking about writing well as a whole, because we know whatever we write can just be improved by ChatGPT. I think that's a fair way to analyze it.
And
Okay,
ChatGPT can even give you a lot of suggestion, even to what gift to be
absolutely.
given to a so and so, or what
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
condolence message to be sent.
Absolutely, absolutely. So yes, it's a assistant for text, and there are other usage which I just wanted to highlight, which I have personally believed that. But most of I was a little apprehensive in picking up this topic, but considering that most of the ISODA members here are tech stalwarts who are much ahead in the tech game than I am, but I just wanted to add my 2 cents to this and have it as a sort of a discussion. The interesting thing you will see behind the photo, if you look at the infographic behind this infographic has not been sourced from the internet. I've used DAL E3, which is a recent addition to ChatGPT, to generate this infographic. I gave it a prompt that please generate something which combines AI, productivity, and tax, and it generated this graphic for me. And so I mean, the first thing I believe is that, a simple tool where you're looking for a simple infographic to present to a customer or to present in a presentation can just be purely outsourced, not just text. And the way to think about personally from my use is that to use it as a constant assistant, an assistant who needs to be told exactly what is to be done, and then the output obviously becomes better.
Correct, correct.
Moving on, what is a prompt? So what I have observed in my personal use of ChatGPT is that yes, you when you want to write something, you obviously go to ChatGPT and you say, yeah, help me write this email, etc., etc. What instead I would want you to just focus upon is the quality of the prompt. So the way LLM models are designed, the way LLM is functioning, it would be the output would be manifold better if you take 15 to 20 seconds to just think about the prompt, the question that you're writing, detail it as much as possible. For example, I have seen major difference in the output when I add words like, please write a LinkedIn post demonstrating excitement about, right? And explaining that who the audience is, telling the tone and the style. So just by adding these two, three things, you will see that the quality of the output increases manifold to what you were ideally doing. So the question is that it is not merely a lot of you must be disheartened by the response you're receiving from ChatGPT. It is because you're not spending a little bit of time in designing the prompt. Please do think about the prompt, the question a little bit. Think about the LLM as a small child who needs to be explained and instructed specifically that please write an email for me in a formal, polite tone, keep it comprehensive, use bullet points, and make it easy to comprehend for the reader, and keep it short and crisp. And you will see just by adding these mere words that the quality of the output will substantially improve. In addition, is also to tell the LLM or the model or the chat GPT that before you're writing, let's say you're asking it for some legal advice, a simple prompt here, which I have seen give a better result, and a lot of people who are actually using it in their day to day, and a lot of people who are using it in legal automation, just say that, let's say you want to write about public information campaign. Start your prompt with, you are a public relation professional. So for example, you want ChatGPT for giving you legal advice. Start your prompt by saying, you are a legal professional having strong legal skills. With this backdrop, please create a legal agreement for me to present to a consultant, where I'm engaging the consultant for XYZ, XYZ. You will see that and you can also add prompts like, please add standard legal clauses with the Indian backdrop. And you will see that the output which ChatGPT is able to generate will be manifolds better than what you're able to do in the regular course of things. So the prompt is important, and spend a little bit of time on the prompt. I have seen personally that spending a little bit of time on the prompt improves the output by 2x or 3x. Make it very clear. The instruction should be clear. The prompt should be as detailed as possible. That's the first part of it. Another tool which I personally have used, and I had actually I'll just share my screen because I wanted to explain how to use this. What we witness with Chat GPT as a problem is that the information, sometimes you cannot use it as a search engine, and that's primarily because it cannot source current information. What I have seen at that point is that perplexity.ai, and I'll be happy to share this link in the chat window, uses the same model, but is able to give outputs of current events. So for example, what is new in the Israel Hamas conflict? Now, the ChatGPT's knowledge is restricted till January 2022, but Perplexity is able to, sorry, is there, Perplexity is able to source from latest sources the time you would spend on going on Google search and searching for this, along with relevant iterations. So you can, this answer has been substantiated with relevant sources and summarized. So your time in going through these 5 to 6 websites is substantially reduced. This can also attract for, this can also work for any other tax or some regular related query that, so I, let's say, what are the changes in GST from 1st October 2023? So it'll go through the blogs or through the articles and at least summarize it so that your search can then start along with sources and it'll suggest you a copy of follow-up question. So this is with bibliography, so you can check which all sources it has retrieved the information from Taxman, from Lexology, from Tax Guru, effective changes. It has sourced through all of these and summarized the result. So it is form of a, it's like a search assistant which you can use.
Fabulous.
It's like a search assistant which you can use and does not suffer from the problem of chat gpt, where the knowledge is restricted till January 2022. There are your old queries, if you log in, can get stored. Your old queries can get stored. For example, I had a doubt about some particular filing. I would have spent 15-20 minutes just googling about it. Rather, I just did a simple search and I got the answer quickly. And I mean, so at the cost of revealing my secrets, a client sometime back asked me how much a gold of Indian woman can hold, right? And I was not aware about this wealth tax rule. It took a simple question here and the answer came along with bibliography. So you can trust this answer. Why? Because it is linking it to the relevant source. So you can be sure that, okay, if it's coming from the income tax website, yes. So although I will not blindly rely on this, but it reduces my effort to find trusted and verified information by at least 80 to 90%. And I would strongly argue for it to be included on your phone. There is an app for it, so you can use it on the go. So it's a form of a search assistant, which I would rate quite highly. I've used it practically, and I personally believe that it's a good addition to your AI arsenal. Moving on. Now, although you are aware about ChatGPT being used, although you are aware about ChatGPT app being existing on your phone, how I have personally used the ChatGPT app is for very advanced level text to speech. So I understand, as you as business owners, obviously, uh, a lot of time goes into and fro in lengthy emails, or where you need to just jot down your thoughts. Now, if I can permit someone to just unmute, do you use any, is someone using any text to speech engine? Like, do you use Microsoft Dictation, Google Voice Typing, so that, your effort in typing gets reduced? I would love it for someone to just feedback and tell me what all they're using. Anybody? Dragon. Perfect. Anybody else who's
Dragon.
Dragon? Right. So one additional tool which OpenAI has is something known as the Whisper model, which is available on the phone. So if members permit, and if I can just take 5 minutes of my time, I'll just demonstrate how I use it for personal use. And I have it installed on my MacBook. And if I have to instruct a long instruction, or if I'm part of, let's say, a meeting where I require a transcription which needs to be pretty accurate, it's an on-device transcription, does not require access to the internet. So can I just get a simple show of hands if I can just demonstrate it on MacBook? I think it'll be useful to all the members. I'm assuming that as a yes, not a very participative audience today. I usually get a lot of feedback participation in between.
Go ahead, yeah.
Okay. Uh, I hope my screen is visible. So just on another use this. This is an on-device complete voice transcription app. So let us just do a simple test of the accuracy of the device. Hi, I am conducting a webinar for the Infotech Software Dealers Association of India, and during the webinar, I have covered a diverse range of topics pertaining to income tax, GST, and I believe that the audience and the participants will leave this webinar with a semblance of more understanding of the topics, and will be able to revert back if they have any queries. Additionally, I believe that the use of artificial intelligence tools will obviously be a beneficial productivity enhancer to all the members. And obviously, so it can be divided into segments and it completely transcribes it. If you look at the accuracy of the text, the errors are hardly anything. And I have personally used Microsoft Dictation, Google Voice Typing, and I have personally, in my experience, not the accuracy of this tool and the fact that it is completely on device and it allows you to completely record a entire audio segment with 2 to 3 people and transcribe it on device, and then this transcription can straight away go to chat gpt and you can just enter a prompt saying that can you please summarize the key points of this discussion for me in 10 bullet points. So in case you have been unable to attend a particular meeting, a particular call, then this becomes an additional benefit or a utility or as an on device as an on device transcription system. And the same I personally use it for writing a lengthy maybe dictations or maybe lengthy notes or maybe lengthy responses to income tax or gst submissions. I'll obviously be sharing the link of this if you do find it useful. Lastly, just wanted to additionally demonstrate how we have been, what I personally believe is a little bit of power of chat GPT is that lately we have the, I'm sorry, I'll just come. Lately what we have been using it, if you can have a look at the screen, we use it for basic automations around the office, and the turnaround time in just automating a small thing can be substantial, where sometimes we have an excel sheet and I just write a simple prompt stating that can you please export the current sheet into a separate file with the file name as the sheet name and append the date and time of creation. Now this would have taken me 3-4 minutes for each sheet to save and then put it in the folder, change the file name. But I have been able to generate a simple script using this without having any knowledge of the coding terminology. It will give you the exact instructions which you need to follow. And maybe with a couple of hidden trials you'll be able to leverage and use it. So we have used this and just prompted the ChatGPT app to generate complete dashboards which we have been able to use to generate reports for clients, obviously without using the client's data. It's just on sample data, and then we use it on extracting information from Tally. We've been able to create automatic dashboards which extract information from Tally by just using what logic we have in our mind, explaining it to ChatGPT and being able to generate the VBA code. We've used it for translation where we've dealt with customers. I have personally spoken to customers and clients where they've said that the translation sounds very comprehensive. It sounds very conversational. So it almost sounds as if it's being written by any human. So I personally believe it is democratizing access to code and basic automation. Wherever you feel you're stuck in terms of a manual process, please do use it. Encourage your staff to use it. We've also used it in case someone is using Google Apps. We've used it to automate Google Sheets. For example, when we have mails coming from a particular customer, when we label that mail as XYZ, we've generated a simple script using Chat GPT that this mail will get logged into a Google Sheet, which can then be addressed by my team members that this mail is pending, this mail is pending. So it allows for you to maybe 2x and 3x your productivity. Another interesting feature which lately has come, and this is on the paid version, which I personally use, just to explain, and I'll end with this, the sophistication of it. It's something known as ChatGPT with imaging. So you can just point your phone at anything and ask it what type of a flower is this. I personally did this on the right. And I got the answer that the prominent flower appears to be a carnation. I have sometimes put it on documents which I need to be OCR'd, and I just put it on that and say, can you please OCR this and prepare a draft response to this. For example, you're, let's say, going for a registry to the local registry office, and you see a document which is not in your native language. I'm not comfortable with reading Hindi, so I try to use it to ask that can you please help me understand what this document is. So not only did it translate from Hindi to English, it helped me explain the entire flow of the document. Another sophisticated thing is that if you look at all of these images on the left, They look similar. This cute chihuahua looks just like the blueberry muffin in the other picture. But you'll see that when we asked it for a tabular format aligned with this picture grid, with each and every column, it could explain that look, column 1, row 1 is a muffin with blueberries, it's a chihuahua with side profile, and you have a group of chihuahua puppies. This is just to demonstrate the sophistication with which it's able to interpret images, which maybe a Google Lens or any other software is unable to do. So a lot of practical utility, I personally believe, a lot of things where maybe I haven't even thought of end use can be used by you. Definitely a good return on investment in my personal view, and something I just wanted to share with all the members on a fine Friday evening. And with that, I've reached the end of my session. Would be happy to entertain any questions, queries, answers, happy to discuss.
So Dhruv, when we buy online software through the
Right.
online portals,
Right,
and nowadays, none of them have their contacts or they have delayed response. Let's say I buy Chat GPT for my customers.
right, right, right.
Now it becomes painful to get connected with the AI people, and the
Understood.
response comes in 10 days, 14 days.
I understand.
And then our credit card payment is done, sometimes personal card and a corporate card also. Now we
Right,
have moved to corporate card, but when personal card is used, has been used, and they want for a 10 months or a 12 months model, then the deduction of TD LRS
right.
comes in.
I understand, sir.
So how do we reverse that
Okay.
part of it? Okay, since I am the owner, so
Mhm.
I don't know. I've been following as of mechanism now. Okay, I'm the owner. I've been paying, and I take a reimbursement. So it is mandatory that we should move to a corporate card for
Sir,
every
no, no,
transaction.
no, no, not at all. Not at all. You can
Okay.
keep using, see, let's say you end up paying 3-4 lakhs worth of tax at the end of the year, right?
Yeah.
Then this TCS is a beautiful thing for you. Why? Because uh that hit gets divided with the entire year. You use your personal card, pay the TCS, you'll get credit for it. Okay. Now
Mhm.
coming, so that's one part of the question. Corporate, non-corporate, it should not be guided by what I've told you about TCS. It should be guided by your convenience, right? At the end of
Okay.
the day, you have to do the business. The TCS on maybe these personal subscription like a Google Workspace, ChatGPT, Netflix, whatever XYZ, I'm just using placeholder, would not pinch you that much in terms of the TCS, and obviously you're getting credit for it. It's not money down the drain. That's one part of it. So the answer your question, no, you don't need to shift to a corporate system for it. The second is ki yes, I think if I'm able to understand the question properly, is that uh, what happens to the we cannot go and obtain the 10F, TRC, etc. Was that
Correct.
the okay?
Yes, in a way, yes,
So
yes.
okay, let me add something which I think I forgot to add while I was covering that. Is that, sir, look, this Supreme Court ruling, what it has done, I'm just putting it back on the screen. What this Supreme Court ruling has done is it has just put a thappa. I'm using the word thappa. It's put a stamp on the fact that ye teen documents le aao, bring these 3 documents. There is 0% chance that TDS is required. Okay. But in spite of, irrespective of this SC ruling, even before that, we, and all of tax consultants were of the view that TDS is not deducted on resale of software. And for standard off-the-shelf software which we use, like your ChatGPT, your simple workspace tools, Paddle, etc., whatever, is not
Mhm.
applicable on it because we're not buying the copyright. We're just buying a copyrighted article. So
Correct.
even in that case, right?
Mm.
Let's say tomorrow the tax guy comes and says ki no tax TDS should be deducted. It is a completely fightable and winnable case. Yes, it will involve litigation. It will involve some hassle on your part, but you are not in the wrong. What this does, the Supreme Court ruling, is it makes you 100% sure, right?
Okay.
That
Okay.
if someone questions you, straight away show him. Today, even when I go to the income tax office, the guy says, "अच्छा जी, वो 10F है, no PA, TRC है, yes है जी. अच्छा वो Supreme Court ruling से तो बनता ही नहीं है TDS." They
Mm.
themselves are already saying this. In the other thing, they'll say, "अच्छा बनता है, देखते हैं जी." But then you tell them कि नहीं बनता है. Okay, कर लो addition. We'll go fight it out. We'll win.
Okay.
So by merit, you're not wrong. You don't have to deduct TDS.
Okay. Got your point. Okay. Fine. Thanks.
So, Kamalji, Perplexity is not to be subscribed. It's free. Just create an account, use it. I had this. Which software is this? Zakir ji, I don't get the question you had posted on the group. Which software is this? If you're talking about the transcription one, it's an open source Mac Whisper utility. I'll post the link to it. I personally like it a lot. I've just posted the link on the chat window to everybody. This is completed. Just to add, that's why I like it. And the transcription can be for 1 hour also. So sometimes, let's say you were attending an ISODA, a very boring ISODA webinar on a Friday evening. You can just essentially put it on record and tell it to summarize at the end of it at 5 p.m.
Okay, I have one more question, Dhruv. Nowadays, even our auditors, because now it is mandatory for them, to be compliant. Otherwise, they are also taken to strict action. So when we do a wire transfer,
Yeah.
and you're not able to provide among the three, one or two documents,
One or two documents, they
take an undertaking letter
take an
from us.
undertaking letter from us.
Sir, I
Sir,
think
I
your
think
voice is
your
echoing.
voice is
You're
echoing.
saying
You're
that
saying that
The
the
auditor, our tax
our tax
consultant,
consultant,
right.
right,
they are
they are
taking
taking
undertaking
undertaking
letters
letters
Okay.
stating that
stating that
you have
you have
only
only
submitted TRC,
TRC
you got us 10F
10F
and
Right.
and
P,
P,
and we are
and we are
issuing this
issuing this
document based on your commitment or something like that. They make us sign an undertaking letter because they want to be compliant.
commit that they
Your
undertaking
tax
letter because they
consultant, you
want to
mean,
be
or the
compliant.
bank?
Your
Tax
tax
consultant.
consultant, you mean, or the bank? Tax
Sir,
consultant.
tax
Sir,
consultant,
tax
obviously they'll try to
consultant,
absolve their
obviously they'll
risk.
try to absolve their
See,
risk.
today,
See,
let's go
today,
back to that
let's go back to
example.
that example.
You are sure your
You are
customer
sure your customer
vendor
will
will give you the
give you
TRC.
the TRC.
Hello? I
There
hope I'm
is
audible. Sorry, I think my voice. Let's say you're sure the customer will vendor will give you the TRC maybe 2-3 months down the line. But
But
the tax consultant might
the
not be
tax
sure. So
consultant
he's
might
just
not be
taking
sure. So
a
he's just
letter
taking
of
a
undertaking or a
letter of
sort of an
undertaking or
undertaking.
a sort of an
Doesn't really harm
undertaking.
you as such.
Doesn't really harm you as such.
Sorry, echo आ रहा है.
Echo, yes, actually.
Yes,
There's a multiple devices been used by someone.
the
So
multi device is used by someone.
I have disconnected my other one.
Request everyone to, mute yourself and only the speakers.
I think, Mr. Thomas, you need to mute yourself.
So I have a question from Miss Sita, and that's a very pertinent question, and it's a very practical question. Her question is that if we have not deducted withholding tax of foreign vendor, then when the same software is resold in India, then we can't provide declaration of non-deduction of TDS, and then they will deduct. So it's excellent question. We're using an example here that you are a person who has just imported software and all the 3 documents are available with you. You don't deduct any TDS. Now you go to sell it to your local customer. The local customer says the declaration, please put the multi-level TDS declaration on the circular. My reading of this is that you can still put the multi-level deduction circular. See, the requirement to not deduct TDS is as per section 195. The circular came at a time when the TDS was deducted at 195, right? But now the situation has been completely cleared to that extent. So you have in spirit kept in line with the provisions of section 195 and not deducted TDS as per the double taxation avoidance agreement. So you have not complied with the law and not deducted TDS. You have deducted TDS, but at 0 rate by checking the double taxation agreement, getting the TRC, getting the 10F, getting the no P. So my point is that if you're reselling the software, you can still put the multi-level TDS deduction. That's my reading of it.
okay, Dhruv. What is W9? Something which they
Sir,
give
it
us.
is Form W9 is a declaration which has to be furnished by. Is it W9 BEN or W9?
W9, is it the same as 10F?
No. So W9 is basically, did you receive it from your customer who was making you the payment or the person who you're making payment to?
OEMs, I received it. So I was wondering what is W9. He says, I've got W9, which I can
No,
use.
no, 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 no. W9 does not. Sir, W9 is it's almost like how to explain it in the Indian context. It's like if I give you my TAN number and I say that, please just if I give you my TAN number and say, ki, okay, this is the TRC. The TRC is a very clear document from the IRS, which will clearly state in one line that this is a tax resident of the US. Let me just see if I can. Let me just show you an example of how a TRC would look like. It would look like this. Sorry, it would look like this. A simple one-line letter stating that I certify that as the Department of Treasury that so and so is the tax representative of India of USA for that particular financial year.
Yeah, I understand. I understand.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Something
So
like
one more
this.
thing is there any portal where we can get such documents available? Suppose we want of a vendor when he's being difficult to, giving us some document.
Right.
Can we get it? Like when we put our SIN number in MCA, we get some
No,
data.
sir, won't be possible because each country's tax authority corporate registry is completely different. You can probably just tell him, look, the IRS of your country, sorry, the tax residency of your country looks like this. So, if a US guy is asking you, you can just show it on Google and say, look, this is form 6166. Just this is the format. This is how it should be. That's the maximum you can do.
Okay, got it. Fine, no problem. Thanks.
Yeah, Shrikant ji, GST reverse charge is required. There is no exemption from that. 18% GST you have to pay. You can get credit of it immediately. Doesn't really pinch your pocket, but yes, 100% applicable. No two ways about it. Next follow-up question is, I have to mention the PAN number of the deductor and section as per the multiple non-deduction of TD. I'm sorry, PAN number of the deductor. The deductor would be you, right? Because if you're importing it in the declaration, you will, I think maybe just reach out to me 1:1 for this specific query. I'll be happy to answer it. My mail ID is available on taxadvisor@isoda.in. Any other questions?
Nothing so far. I think thanks a lot, Dhruv bhai, for
Yeah.
this wonderful session. I think it was really, really useful.
Yeah.
I think many members of ISODA have been feedback, and this was really, really required.
I totally echo your view. It is
Thank you.
a
Thank you.
fantastic session.
Thank you.
And thank you
That's
for
so
giving
kind.
your updates. I think this would really help.
Sorry, if you can repeat that.
The AI updates, the usage of AI.
Yeah, okay. I'll
Then,
definitely share. So I'll if I was just hoping if there's good feedback on this, I'd like I sent tax update, I'd be happy to share some AI updates from time to time.
Sure.
Yeah.
Please keep on sharing us
Yes,
with
sure.
that. Yeah, okay. Great then. Thanks a lot, Dhruv, for the
Thank
full
you.
session, and thanks a lot, audience, for coming
Thank you.
and making this very interactive.
Thank you everybody for joining. Yeah. Thanks,
Right.
Dhruv.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Right.
Thank
And
you very
on
much, sir.
Friday Connect
Thank you very much.
on 27th, there will be a communication going on for that very soon. Right. It will be on security awareness. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye. Good evening.
Good evening. Thanks a lot, Dhruv.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Bye-bye. Have a good week.
Bye. Abhina, you can go ahead and stop the recording. And, we can connect.